Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, Fragehardt Gaming. I'm Fragehardt. Today we're going to be doing some coaching. I have a friend of mine who is a main tank player, such as myself, just like myself, and he has been struggling ranking up. And I told him that if he wanted some help, I could help him. So I had him send me a video, and I told him I would break it down for him and show him what he's doing right and what he's doing wrong. And that's what we're going to do today. Before I go into coaching, I just want to throw out some of my credentials before I start saying what's good and what's not, so you can see my potential credibility. For those of you who don't know who I am or haven't been on my channel before or never heard of me, I've been a Grandmaster tank player for the past 4 or 5 seasons now, and before that I was in Masters. I generally play the main tanks, Reinhardt being my go-to, but these days it's rough. And Winston and Orisa, but I generally play a lot of Winston because that's where the meta's at right now, and hopefully that shifts sometime in the near future. But at heart, I'm a Reinhardt main. Some of you may know me for that from the forums. And anyway, I just want to get into coaching this video and hopefully showing the person who sent me this video and maybe even teaching a few other people some do's and don'ts. Hopefully this video footage can help someone. So I'm just going to get into it. And I'm going to be playing the video and pausing it and rewinding and whatnot throughout the whole thing. So this should be fun. So here we go. I just want to pause it where he hits tab. Oh, it's a little fast. Okay, so there we go. He's got. I just wanted to show the team comp. And this is right where, in the beginning of the game, obviously, sometimes it can certainly feel like games can be won and lost before the match even starts. And while that might be a little overblown, team comp is very important, and it's not exactly cut and paste. Certain maps have different little sub-metas, I like to think of it, where something that's usually where people always ask, well, what's the meta? Well, that's defined on a map-by-map basis. And this is Numbani. I do want to talk about some of the hero picks. It's not always going to be a situation where you can influence in matchmaking. You're not always going to be able to influence your teammates on what they do and don't pick. What you can do is try to make sure you're in the right slot to build around your teammates and to work around the map. I asked this person to send me in footage, and he is predominantly a Reinhardt player, and he takes a lot of pride in it, just like I do. And so I'm wondering if he picked Reinhardt just because I asked him to send me in footage, or if he would generally always play Reinhardt on this point. But generally I don't like to play Ryan on first point Numbani. The thing is that there's a lot of high ground that the defense generally sets up on the first point, and you generally need heroes that can get up and down on the high ground at will to contest anybody who's up there. And there's sort of a lack of synergy going on in this comp. I'm going to talk about that. We have a Winston and a Diva, right? And that's perfect. That's exactly what you want for a first point Numbani. The Winston can go in with the Diva and jump up on the high ground and attack whoever's there. And hopefully try to catch an isolated player and dive that target, or figure out who to dive. But say the Winston and Diva jump up there, you've got an Ana, a McCree, and a Reinhardt stuck down in the bottom or stuck on the other side of the map, or they can't dive with them. So while half the team wants to jump and get on the high ground and do their own thing, you're going to have the other four players potentially doing staying on the low ground, not being able to assist with that, or being across the way on the left side, where they might want to dive on the right side, and so your team can get pretty split. You're pretty much asking with this comp for your team to get split up. So you have the McCree. The McCree is sort of a weird pick when you factor in that the rest of these two tanks are divey. McCree always needs a shield, or he doesn't necessarily need it, but it really helps to have, when you have hit scan heroes on your team, to have a shield. But like I said, McCree can't contest the high ground like some other heroes can. So you generally like to see something like a Genji or a Tracer or a Pharah on this first point, so that your team can contest it. Sometimes some teams will go full dive, but they'll take a soldier, and a soldier will run up on the top left side and shoot across, while the other team dives the right side. The rest of the team dives the right side. But anyway, like I said, you can't always influence your teammates' picks. But with Reinhardt, you're very limited pushing the first point on this map with Reinhardt, because there's essentially only a few things you can do. You can go through that top left choke and try to muscle your way through there with the shield, which most teams in matchmaking in the mid to lower ranks try to do almost every time. And so teams in matchmaking will try to play around that. They'll try to set up on that top side to defend it, and you can get stuck there. And if you get stuck there trying to muscle your way through that choke, really the only other ways you can go are try to muscle your way onto the point through the main, or you can go underneath. And you're just very limited. And if you do that, if you do go through main and you go underneath, then you're not able to contest the high ground, and then the other team is able to shoot down on you from up top for free the whole time, and that's generally not good. So then you're basically forced to try to take the high ground on the top left, and if you keep going through the same choke over and over again, it's predictable. The other team can take a Junkrat, or they can spam in through it, and you're going to have a very hard time getting through that a lot of the time. But anyway, like I said, you can't always impact your teammates' choices with these things, so let's just move on. Let's just move forward with this. Get into the gameplay. I will say I have watched this once already, and you can listen to the players' callouts. His communication is excellent. Throughout the whole thing, he is putting himself in what you call the shot caller role, and I think that's generally something the main tank should generally do. So for those of you watching this who are main tanks and you want to work on your communication skills, listen to what he says. I'll highlight it as it goes on, but he's generally trying to tell his teammates where the enemies are, where he wants to go, cooldowns, what he wants to do, ultimates, synergy, stuff like that. So that's stuff you generally want to do, and this player does it pretty well. So we'll see it in a second.
Okay, so just peek right now. Okay, you got a bunch on the left. I think you have a Moira on the right.
Okay, so what he's trying to do there is he's trying to gain information for his team, trying to figure out where the enemy team is set up. They have decided to come up main, and like I said, that's going to put them in an awkward situation where 4 out of the 6 players on the team are stuck down below on the point, while the rest of the team, who as you can see now is on the top left and the top right, can shoot down on them for free. Winston and D.Va can contest this high ground, but that's essentially a 2 against 6. Fortunately, though, the other team is very split on which sides they're on, So it will allow for maybe some counterplay from these tanks. But again, you're gonna see in a second they're gonna push up onto the point, and they'll be stuck down there while the rest of the enemy team's on the top. So let's see how that plays out.
So they're split. Two on the left. You can go for the ones on the left.
Okay, so Winston and Diva have jumped up top, or Winston is down here, and Diva has gone up top. I think the Winston jumps up there in a second. That's good because it seems like not a whole lot of there's some isolated enemies up here who are very vulnerable. But you see, there is a Roadhog behind you, and I believe there's another tank back there. So this player's facing this way, and perhaps it might be better to turn the other way and protect against the Roadhog. Yeah, so that's what happens. This Roadhog is still there. It's generally a 1v1 you want to avoid as main tank. Roadhog can generally make the life of a main tank very hard, and it's very hard to kill him in a direct duel with the main tanks because you don't generally output a ton of damage. And he can just heal through most of whatever. But you do have there's something to be said for having your team to back you up. So let's just let this run. Okay, it's very good how he stepped in front of the Diva there. Okay, I'm gonna go back to show you what I was talking about. So he gets hooked, turns around. So he sees the Diva here, and jumps in front to shield. That's very good play from a tank player. I mean, it might seem basic, but that is something you want to be trying to do. I see a lot of players complain that, oh, well, people walk in front of my shield, they step in front of, they don't use it, they step to the side, whatever. But to a certain extent, it is your job to make sure you get the shield out in front of your teammates. So that's a small thing I see. And so right here, Reinhardt turns the corner. And I don't know what the thought process is here. And I know this player knows not to do things like this, and sometimes we do things that we don't necessarily want. We don't. Well, we do things that we know that are wrong. We don't play perfectly all the time. See ya. But you're going to see in a second, he's going to go for a very long charge. And one thing I always try to tell Rhine players is that when you charge, you always have to keep in mind where the end of the charge is going to be. You can't just charge a player because you see a player. Keep in mind where the charge is going to end. So if you were to charge right now through this player and go straight through this player, he'd end up on this back wall right here. And that would leave him exposed to whoever's over here, which the enemy spawn is here, so that when they turn the corner, they'll all be grouping here. And you don't want to be exposed to whoever's there. If you bend the turn, you're going to end up going even further, and you're going to end up against this back car over here, and that's even worse. Best case scenario, what you can do, because when you charge, not only do you want to keep in mind where the charge is going to end, but the reason you want to do that is because you want to know how far you're going to go, because charging short distances is always better than charging long distances, unless you're trying to get back from spawn or something. One thing you can do is wait for him to walk, because it looks like he's walking in this general direction, and then pin him up against this wall here. But that's not what happens. We're going to go for this charge. He moves a little bit too far to the left, so we're going to miss this Rhine. But we try to bend it. We get a little lucky. Someone happens to be turning this corner at the exact moment that you charge past it. And you're able to get a pin against this back car here. But now we're a little bit out of position. Fortunately, the Reinhardt doesn't turn to peel for the Moira, and the callout is good. You're calling what target is hurt. That's very good. You want to be, anytime you do damage, it's always a big chunk of damage. The minimum amount of damage Reinhardt can actually do is 75. That's one hammer swing. So if you get 75 damage onto a squishy, they're almost half. So generally, anytime you damage a squishy, you want to call for focus on that target, unless it's a tank. Because that person is now very vulnerable to being picked off and to being finished off by the rest of your team. So it was good that you were able to do that. Now, in a second, we're going to walk into this doorway. And you'll see that charge has just come back up off of cooldown, and that's going to come into play in a second. But I would say be very careful when you're walking into a room with a Reinhardt where the doorway is so narrow. Because if he decides to charge you, there's no way he can miss, really. Because his whole body almost takes up this entire doorway. So if he charges through that doorway and you're in it, you're probably going to get pinned. So you're going to walk through this doorway, and he's going to start pinning. Now, the only thing you can do to avoid getting charged now is anytime you see another Reinhardt charge, you have to be ready to hit shift to countercharge it. Now, obviously, this is a reaction time thing, and this all happens very quickly, but if you walk through a door like that, you should be anticipating that the Reinhardt will charge you, because, especially since his back is into a wall and there's nowhere for him to go and most of his team is dead, this is kind of going to be a desperation thing. But I will say, this player is a friend of mine, and he's a bit of an older player, so his reaction time may not be what it was when he was 18, and so it's very hard to criticize for something like this. But even if the reaction time isn't there, this is something you should potentially try to anticipate, because you are putting yourself in that vulnerable position of being in the doorway and being an easy pin target. So as soon as you hear the audio cue or see the Reinhardt begin to charge, you need to immediately hit shift to countercharge to knock him down. But that's not going to happen here. We're going to get pinned.
I tried.
And it's an easy finish because he's low and he was isolated. He's by himself. So that's going to be a point A take.
On point.
I got you.
Or no, I think actually the other team is able to get back on point a little bit.
Diva's here.
Okay, so this is very good. You're protecting your supports, and you're not trying to go after the diva swinging. You're just gonna let your teammates finish off the diva. Something that you'll see a bit often from tank players, is they'll go out and try to make a bunch of plays themselves. But you don't always need to be the one making the plays. Sometimes you can enable your team to make plays while simultaneously protecting them. So what you're doing is you're protecting the supports behind you, putting yourself in between the primary threat, the highest source of damage. You want to find the highest source of damage and stand between it and your teammates. You want to cut off that angle because this diva is trying to shoot this way at your teammate, so you want to stand here. And always try to, as Reinhardt, you always want to be the wall in between where the main threat is to your team, and where your most vulnerable squishies are on your team. So let them finish off the diva.
They're still pushing. McCree's pushing in. Morris has no fate. She has no fate.
Okay, so that's good. You get a little frame drop there, but that's good. You've identified that the Moira has blown her cooldowns, and you've called that out to your team. This is a big deal. This allows Winston to jump on as he has right now. When Moira has no fade, that is the time where she's most vulnerable to being dove, because she can't get away. She's locked into wherever she is for 6 seconds. So, that's a good call out. Diva's demect.
Diva's out of mech. Yep. Diva's
Easy
dead.
cleanup.
They just keep diving.
And this is good. Anytime as Reinhardt, if you're playing Reinhardt and you have an on your team, anytime a sleep dart is hit, you need to be charging that as a general rule of thumb. There are times where you might want to just pass up on it because you can't get a good angle on the charge and you'd end up too far away from the team, or you'd end up, charging into the enemy team. But in most situations, you'll be able to get a free charge on whoever's pinned. Don't wake them up with your hammer. Wait for your charge to come off cooldown if you can, unless it's the cooldown is higher than 6 seconds because you just used it. But generally, you want to be saying, "Hey guys, don't touch him. Let me get it. Let me get it. Don't touch it." And you get the free pin against the wall.
Yeah,
Easy cleanup.
Alright, I got Earth Shatter. Diva, how close are you? Because I can combine Diva Bomb with you.
So this is good. You're trying to coordinate ults.
That's one of my favorite.
Generally,
Push up.
like I said, it's the job of the shot caller to try to coordinate ults. And you've called for the combo with the Diva. I don't think the Diva responded in any sort of way, so that's unfortunate. You can't always make people talk in the voice chat or even join the voice chat. But the idea, the sentiment is there, and that's what counts.
Please let this be a 5 and 2.
I'm with you
My
on Soldier.
placements so far are 4 and 2. So this is really good. Way
Soldier's
better than on my
dead.
main.
Yeah, they're staggered. They're staggered.
Get some more.
Keep pushing the payload. Keep pushing the payload.
So no one's on the payload. I mean, that's unfortunate. Really, that's not your job. The supports should be pushing the payload a bit. The backliners should be doing that. It's not Reinhardt's job. But, yeah. So you were able to coordinate with the Winston. I think the Winston called out that the Soldier was all alone. You're able to finish him and then block damage, get back to your team. That's good.
I jumped off to get
More lost her fate. I'm on her.
So again, great communication. Great way to identify that Moira doesn't have her fade. I don't know if you saw the audio cue or saw a visual. I didn't actually notice it.
Keep pushing the payload. Keep pushing the payload. Don't neglect it.
I know,
Yeah, so you saw the visual, and you're able to identify, hey, this player's stuck where she is. Time to go pounce on it, and that's what you do.
More lost her fate.
Fantastic.
I'm on her. She's dead.
I've still got, whatever her ult is.
Okay, so this is a bit awkward. You just killed the Moira, and you're looping back behind the enemy team, which I think is actually is a lot of times a very cool thing to do, a very good idea when you can get it in cheeky spots, and you're not worried about the enemy Ryan shattering your team or whatever. You're not worried about some sort of key ult. If you're in a spot where you can do this and your team has advantage, it can be very effective. But you seem a bit unsure. This player seems a bit unsure whether or not he wants to swing into the enemy Ryan or go for the pin. I think you generally want to be taking the pin back to your team. Anytime you can pin a player back into your team, it's almost a guaranteed kill. And it can be hard to set up at times, but when you get an opportunity to do it, you should do it. So you're closing the distance. You throw a fire strike first. This is going to alert him that you're there. And something I probably wouldn't have done. It's a bit greedy. But if you just position yourself around here and gone for the pin back into this bus over here, that probably would have been better. So you hit him with the fire strike and you push right into him, and then you go for the pin. It's a bit late, and he's able to identify it and move out of the way. Because you fire striked him and walked into him, he was able to figure out that you were there and move out of the way in time. Whereas if you had just gone for the pin, he probably wouldn't have known. He probably wouldn't have been able to react in time because he wouldn't have known you were there. So just a small thing. Good. You're calling to get behind you. You've identified where the McCree is. You've effectively shut down McCree's ult. Good job.
Get ready.
I'm gonna get the McCree.
Get ready for a shatter. Go, go, go.
Okay, this is fantastic. You called to your team, hey, I want to shatter, be ready to clean up. We can take this fight if I shatter. And you're just waiting for your opportunity, and you're telling your team to be ready for it because the moment you're seeing your opportunity, you're going for it. And lo and behold, the opportunity comes.
Okay, I'm gonna get the McCree.
Get ready for a shatter.
You got a bit lucky though. But regardless, you would have shattered this soldier regardless because he's in front of this. He is in front of the Reinhardt, and I think that's what you saw. So you went for it. It is a bit fortunate that the Reinhardt drops his shield. I don't know if he broke it or if it breaks. I don't know if he dropped it or if it breaks.
Shatter. Go, go, go.
No, I think he just drops it. But just shattering the soldier probably would have been enough anyway. But you got lucky and got the second player with it as well.
I'm gonna get back on point. Just keep pushing forward.
Reinhardt,
Or did you get him? Because he's standing up when that happens.
Shatter. Get ready. Get ready.
I'm gonna get the McCree.
Get ready for a shatter. Go, go, go.
No, he's able to get around the corner. But still, like I said, the soldier's enough. And you're able to
I'm gonna get back
charge right through it the moment you get it. One thing you want to be careful with, and this is something I see a lot of less experienced Ryan's players do, is when you get the shatter, you don't always have to charge a target right away. You have enough time to get in 2 swings, a fire strike, and a charge. All in the amount of time that you stun them. As long as you don't have to walk too great a distance to get up to them. But if you only stun one target, you might as well just go for the charge, because you don't want that player to somehow get healed through your swings, or to get bubbled, or you don't want to get slept and lose out on the kill. You don't want a trance to happen. So if you only knock that one player, just clean it up. Go for the surefire charge. You've done that. The play is excellent. Your team is going to be able to push through point B because of your ult. This is a
Get behind me. Get behind
Okay.
me. Get behind me. There you go.
good way to call to get behind you again.
Diva's lit. Diva more.
This is very good target prioritization. Target prioritization is something I generally talk about more with Winston players. But in this specific scenario, it's something I do want to comment on. So, you just blocked the Diva ult, and you're pushing up into the enemy. Diva and the Moira's there. Well, we'll be there in a second. But right now, the Diva's just there, so you're swinging to the Diva because she's the only thing there, and that makes sense. So, we swing. I think it just skipped ahead. But then you're going to notice that the Moira is healing. The Moira is healing the Diva. So, in your mind, you've decided it's not worth it to swing on the Diva anymore. She's just going to get healed through whatever I do. It's always the healer first, and plus the healer's just a higher priority target anyways. It's higher value if you remove their healer. You've pushed on beyond the Diva instead of tunnel visioning into the Diva, as a lot of players do. I do see this happen a lot. But very good target prioritization, because you would have spent a lot more time swinging to the Diva, and the Moira also would have built quite a bit of ult off of that. So you take out the Moira first.
Stay behind me. Stay behind me. No, he's in front.
I believe the team may have taken out the
You're
Diva.
wasting ults.
Just ignore him.
You ready for his?
Okay, so here your team is deciding to push up into these late spawners who are and trying to stagger them, and that's great. That's what you want to be doing. But right here, you're going to identify that this Reinhardt has Shatter, which a good tank player should be keeping track of the enemy ults, especially the other tank players, the other frontliners on the other team, the enemy frontliners. Especially when it's high value like Ryan. In a Ryan v Ryan, you should be the one always identifying when the other enemy Ryan should have Shatter, which he should, because I don't believe I've seen him use it to this point in the game. So there's no way he doesn't have it by now. You know that. You just say that right here.
Third shatter. Stay behind me. No, he's in front. He's in front. They're wasting ults.
Just ignore him.
You ready for his Earth Shatter?
Okay, so you say get ready for his Earth Shatter. You know he has it. You know he has it. And in this situation, you want to try to bait out the enemy Ryan into using his ult into a nice block, because you can block it with your shield, obviously. So here's, you generally want to like bop him on the nose with your hammer, or flicking your barrier up and down. You can even sometimes get cheeky and turn around with your shield and then quickly turn back around. Try to bait him into try to bait him into thinking that it's safe for him to shatter somehow, and then block it. But that isn't what happens here.
Coming, I think. Yeah, there you go. Good job.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a non-issue because the Reinhardt gets cleaned up anyway, and it's a battle by him. But the point of this is to get better as a player. So here's what I've identified. What happens here? You know he has Shatter, and you're trying to push up into him. But the main objective should be here to block his ult and to bait him into using it. So you push up into him, but you go for a greedy Fire Strike, and then you try to get a Hammer Swing on him. This is very greedy. It's a little unnecessary. Yeah, you can build your ult off the Fire Strike, and that's great. But right now, it's more important that you don't get shattered. It's very hard to react to it in time because you get locked into an animation when you Fire Strike where you cannot shield during that animation. And this Reinhardt sees that and tries to fit in a Fire Strike in between. Which might not have worked if not for the fact that you went for a swing after that. So it's a bit greedy, and you know in your head that the player has Shatter, so you got to be playing a little bit more conservative in this situation.
Yeah, there you go. Good job. Keep pushing payload. There you go.
Obviously, it doesn't matter in this situation as much because it gets cleaned up, but maybe in a future situation, it might be the difference between winning and losing. So it's something that you want to be careful of. And what I mean by that is not going for greedy Fire Strikes when you know the enemy Ryan has ult. Because best case scenario, you build a little bit of ult. You very rarely ever get one of those where like, oh, I killed someone with your Fire Strike. It happens from time to time, but the amount of times you're going to get punished for going for that greedy Fire Strike are higher than the amount of times you're going to get that kill or that juicy ult percentage. Especially if you already have ult, then there's just no reason. You should probably stop throwing Fire Strikes out at that point, or at least slow down your rhythm of it. But if you know the other Ryan has Shatter, I would generally play it very close to the vest. Stop going for Fire Strikes because it's going to be hard to block the ult when you go for that Fire Strike. And a good Ryan will punish you for it. So
I almost have Earth
move
Shatter
forward.
again. You could either give it to me or Winston. Steve, are you close? We can combine. Right here at the end.
So you're looking for ult synergies again. You're keeping track of your team's ults. That's great. You're talking about Nano Boost. I think it's probably better to put it on the Winston in this situation, but that's neither here nor there. You are trying to get the Diva to coordinate with you again. That's great.
They're gonna push behind through the tunnel, I feel.
We got a Reaper.
No, they're not. They have a Reaper.
Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Go, 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 go. Target Mercy. Target Mercy. Target Mercy. Stay behind me. Stay behind me. That's a Reaper.
I'm going to go back a bit. I just wanted to let that play out. So
We can combine.
So you call out, you're doing the same thing from before. You're calling out to your team when you're going to shatter so they can clean it up and they can be ready for it. Your whole team's behind you, and this is their main shield player is dead. I think they have an Orisa and a Reinhardt. So I don't know if the Orisa died. But when you're around the corner here, you should be set up for a free shatter. There shouldn't be much in the way on your front line. So you've identified this and you're ready for it. You let your team know, but then this happens.
Behind through the tunnel, I feel.
We got a Reaper.
No, they're not. They have a Reaper.
Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Go, 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 go.
Okay, so you get the Reaper and Diva, and unfortunately the Mercy is just behind this tree, and as we all know, Reinhardt's ult is... It is what it is, but it's a buggy mess, and even though it seems from your point of view that the Mercy probably should get pinned there, or should get stunned, she doesn't. So you've made a decision in your head preemptively to go for the Mercy instead of waiting that 10th of a second later to see if she got stunned or not. And you get punished for this. Because now not only do you not get the Mercy, but you also boop the Reaper out of the way off the ground, so he's no longer sitting still on the ground and is less easy for your team to clean up. So you come away with nothing. You could have, if we go back...
They're gonna push behind through the tunnel, I feel.
We got a
No,
Reaper.
they're not. Now they're not. They have a Reaper.
Get ready, get ready. Get ready. Go, 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 go.
You could have just made the decision to... I wouldn't charge the Reaper this way. It's too far, and the Honest here should probably just sleep you. What you could have done is walk around the Reaper to this side and pin him into this wall. It's a shorter charge. You're less likely to get CC during it. You can even set up the pin by walking up with your shield and then pinning that way. This way you don't get sleep darted. But yeah, we go for this. We knock the Reaper into safety, all the way back onto his team. Then we get antied.
Target Mercy. Target Mercy.
Target Mercy is a good call. She has gone into your team. She's very vulnerable. That's an excellent. That's excellent communication, and trying to get your team to focus targets. That's excellent focus call. Does the Mercy die? She does. So that's great. Largely in part to your call out. That's fantastic. So you dance around your supports. The divas. You've identified that the divas on your supports.
Target Mercy. Target Mercy. Target Mercy.
This is okay. So you see that the diva is trying to kill your supports, and this is excellent. You're gonna move right in front of the diva, and we're gonna stand in front of our supports and protect them. That's fantastic
Stay
play.
behind me. Stay behind me. That's a Reaper.
See, now you're being the wall. You're getting in front of the biggest threat to your supports and shutting them down.
Oh, Junkrat's one.
I want to go back a second. There was something I saw that I don't think you saw.
That's a Reaper.
Okay, so you see the Reaper here. He's gonna exit to the left here. And now in my head, I'm thinking, I wonder if that Reaper's going back behind through these tunnels here to come back behind us.
Reaper's one. Oh, Junkrat's one too.
Okay, but you get the diva.
Target Reaper.
So it looks like that is what he did. He died anyway.
Target Mercy. Target Mercy. Target Mercy.
You're calling focus targets. That's great.
Okay, we got it.
You prioritize the healer over the tank in that situation too. That's good play. So if you check the medals, it all checks out. 16-0. Gold damage. Feels good, man. So let's move on to the next round. We've gone with the Orisa, and we're gonna try to hold this choke here. As like I said, a lot of the mid-tier players opt to do. This is a strategy I see a lot of people kind of bang their head against the wall with on this map, and I don't necessarily think it's the best way to go. Teams will set up with turtle style comps. The Death Volley / turtle style comps are a lot more common in the mid ranks specifically. I think that's where they're the most common, because the dive can be hard to coordinate, but you end up forcing it in scenarios where it doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. So you're going to be sitting up here and trying to shield people from coming in through this way, which in all likelihood they very well might bang their head against the wall and try to come through anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
You just let me know. Which way they.
I have 10% already.
They're going. They're going up.
Top. So we got Diva up top.
So that's good. You've identified where the players are and told your team. so that they can help you. That's fantastic.
There's a
They're coming up.
tracer
They're coming up.
behind.
Diva's lit. Diva's lit. Diva's lit.
Okay, so you're saying Diva's lit. You got it down to about a third HP there, which is great. And you're saying Diva's lit. But one criticism I would have is it might be difficult for players to understand where to go chase down this diva because you haven't told them where she is. Or you've given them vital information that she's low, but if they don't know where the diva is or they didn't see her go somewhere, then it's not necessarily very useful because they don't know where she's gone, so they don't know where to go dive her. So maybe in the future, Diva's lit by the Mega in main. Just a small thing.
Got one.
Testing it.
Reaper behind.
Got two.
Obviously, 2 big kills. That's just, good aim. Nothing more to say there.
Targeting Diva. Target Diva. Target Diva. Diva. Diva.
Diva can
Drop
be
down.
D-back.
Okay, get the diva. Get the diva. Tracer down.
All right, so we were a little bit slow to react to the Reaper being behind us there. Let me bring that back. So we're on the high ground. We're trying to shoot down on them. I was actually worried we were going to drop down, but you didn't. It's very good that you stayed on the high ground there. That's where you needed to be because you can shoot down on them from above. No reason to drop down. Don't give up the high ground for free. But, so we're shooting.
Target Diva. Target Diva. Target Diva.
You're calling for target prioritization again. That's very good. Trying to break the Winston bubble so your team can do that. Behind you, you can hear a Reaper's audio cue of him wraith forming around behind you, and you haven't seemed to take notice of this, which is something that sometimes even the best of us might not hear in a situation as it happens, or might just miss it. That's fine. I'm not perfect either, but we're gonna get shot in the back. We're gonna get shot in the back by the Reaper. And he's just killed your... Also, another thing you could have noticed is he just killed your soldier. And your soldier was up with you, I believe. So you should have seen that he killed the soldier and known that he must be nearby because it's Reaper and he's not killing people from a million miles away. But you're getting shot in the back. It's time to fortify. Fortify's got to come out right now. Or we're likely going to die. We don't, but...
Drop down. Okay, get the diva. Get the diva. Tracer.
Fortify does come out, but it comes out a hair too late.
Diva. Diva. Diva.
D-back. Diva can
Drop
be
down.
D-back.
Okay, get the diva.
He hits us 3 to 4 times before the Fortify comes out. So, it's got to be a little quicker the first time you're getting hit from a Reaper from behind. It's got to be immediate. Obviously, like I said, with the reaction time thing, it is what it is. A player, in this game a player can get by without having amazing reaction time, because there's such a diverse amount of viable skill sets in this game, as far as different heroes do different things, and you don't always need the best mechanical skills or reaction time or whatever. But it would be better if we got that out just a hair sooner. You don't want to... One mistake I see that's not even really reaction time based is some players will let their health get too low before they go for the Fortify because they don't want to waste it. But it's better to just use the Fortify as soon as you start taking damage and your shield isn't up, and if someone's behind you, as soon as the threat is on you, just use the Fortify, because you're going to get more effective HP. Think about it this way: if you use it when you're at 400 health, think of that like having effectively 800 HP. That's not even accounting for armor, because it halves the damage. Whereas if you wait till you're 100 health, it just gives you an extra 100 health instead of giving you an extra 400 health. So, yeah. You don't want to wait till you're about to die to use Fortify. That's not going to be the best way to get value out of it.
Diva, get the diva. Tracer down. Reaper down.
Team wins the fight anyway. Feels good, man.
What picked off our 76?
Reaper who's behind us.
Okay, yeah. So we weren't really paying attention to the kill feed too much because we're asking what killed this soldier. Sometimes in the heat of the fight, it's hard to look at the kill feed, but try to keep an eye on it.
Oh wait, one Frager up top.
Oh, Winston and Zen.
I've never heard it called me.
Just watch for that flank. 76. Watch for that flank.
So that's good. We saw the tracer. We saw her run away. We were telling the team to be careful because she might be behind us at some point.
The healers
That's
are in
good.
the back. Need help assisting on the healers?
Okay, so we've made the same mistake again. The Reaper comes up behind us. We wait too long to fortify. You're forced to drop. That's okay to drop there. You had to because you would have died. But we waited too long. We waited too long on the fortify. And it gets us down to 46 HP before we have a chance to react. Before we use our cooldown. So this isn't looking good. We have to put down a shield in front of us or we're dead. But you're dead anyway.
We're not going for the healers, Somber. You need to not focus on the tracer. You need to go for that healer.
From me.
You know, I know, like I said, this is one of my friends, and I know him. He's very, very positive guy almost all the time. And but sometimes it can get a little frustrating. So we're trying to enlighten this Sombra on who he should be prioritizing with his targets. But you know, one thing I do want to get into is how much I believe in positivity in ranked. And even if something's frustrating you, try to always say things in a positive manner. So we want to be careful how we're wording things, obviously. Just as a general tip, not as for this specific scenario. I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said there. Yeah, just as a general tip, we want to say things in as positive a manner as possible. So instead of, hey man, you need to drop the Hanzo, it's not working, you could say something like, hey, I see that you're a Hanzo player, but I really think that a Pharah could be really good on this point because there's so much aerial cover, and we have a Mercy, and I think it could, and they only have a Junkrat and a Reaper, so they wouldn't have anything to counter with. I think it could be really good if you're willing to try it. And I think you'll find that a lot of players are very receptive to when you talk to them with the slightest amount of respect. So this is a general tip moving forward. Anyway.
Kill Reaper, he's on point.
Trying to get you, soldier.
The healers are on the main street.
I've got my
What's
coalescence. That's what it is.
We have an advantage.
Nice.
Okay, so we've thrown a barrier out there because we're just trying to get it out there to help the team from afar. But we could have done this earlier. And this is going to matter in a second because we're not going to have the barrier cooldown when we need it. I want to talk about hugging walls and positioning now for a second. Because really what you want to do is ideally you want a barrier here around this corner so you can peek around the corner, and if the barrier breaks you can go back behind the wall for cover. You always want to keep your shields near cover. This way if they break there's terrain you can hide behind. Instead, what you see a lot of players do is to put the barrier across here in the middle of the street or something like that, and then when it breaks they're forced to move all the way back around the corner and hide, or you know, depending on the map, wherever it takes them longer to get to cover. Try to hug your barriers across walls or corners or doors or something like that. This way, when you try to engage or when you're peeking, if your shield breaks, you're not going to die as easily, and you can wait for your shield cooldown to come back up. But the other thing is, you've thrown a shield out there. It's actually too far of a toss. Happens. It's, you know, neither here nor there, really. It happens to anyone. But we could have done that earlier. As we're walking up.
We have an advantage.
Nice.
We could toss it now. And by the time we walk back up there, we'll have another shield off cooldown, so we can place a new shield. So we're going to let it run.
I'm being focused. I'm going Lucio.
Reaper's lit. Winston's lit.
Okay, so we end up. I'm gonna run that back.
Nice.
I'm being focused.
So you see how when you turn this corner, because it's partially because this barrier is so far out of the way, but when you turn this corner, there's so much room for them to just shoot you, and there's nothing to hide behind. That's where you really want the barrier here, and that's why it matters so much that this barrier is off cooldown by the time you get up here. So you need to throw the barrier earlier. Anyway, because then you could contest the point and put the barrier down right here and just stand on the corner of the point to try to contest it to wait for your team to come back. But instead, you feel forced to walk all the way this way because your barrier is over here, and there's nothing protecting you because it's on a weird angle, which is also not good. You'd really need a barrier right now to put it here, but you still can't do that. Reaper's 1 can't kill him because he's in Wraith. You should be fortifying right now because there's nothing to hide behind. Your shield is gone. There's no terrain. There's no cover. Right now, you should be maximizing the amount of uptime you have for your life. You should be maximizing your amount of effective HP. And to do that, you should have done it almost. I don't want to say preemptively. You shouldn't use fortify preemptively, but the moment you took any amount of damage at all. Okay, so you've done that. So okay, that's good. That's good. But barriers come off cooldown. One thing I do want to say for Orisa is anytime this is obviously you're gonna die here. You're the only one left up, and half the team is staring at you. But if you're absolutely going to die and you know it as Orisa, the last thing you should do before you die is throw out a barrier that your team can use. It might not matter in this scenario because they're probably going to cap anyway. But in a team fight, and you're the second one to die on your team or first or whatever, and you're going to die, just throw down a barrier right before you die. It's a general tip because at least even though you're dead, you're still giving your teammates some sort of value even from beyond the grave. It's unfortunate because you had to use your fortify. I would have used that fortify too, but the tracer was able to wait for your fortify to end and then pulse you. Obviously, if your fortify is off cooldown, a thing you can do is you can just fortify up, and it actually blocks enough of the damage, prevents enough of the damage so that you survive through the pulse bomb. But nothing we can do there. Feels bad, man. Looks like they're gonna cap. Okay, so here you got the close spawn, and a good team will push up after they cap that first point and press you at the doors here and get the bad spawns, because half your team might have gotten the further spawn and half your team gets the closer spawn, so the team is automatically split. And a good enemy team will punish this. They have Winston and Diva and Tracer to really push up with and punish this with. Even Moira and Reaper if they're feeling like they really want to go full tilt into it. But this is important because your whole team is coming out of the left door, and that's going to put you closer into the spot where the enemy team is going to farm you the easiest and kill you the easiest to separate you. You really want to tell your team to come through the right door because it's further away, and it's harder for the team to punish, the enemy team to punish. Just a small thing they should keep in mind. It's the same with most spawns.
I can go Junkrat.
We'll get the spam. We'll get the spam like a Junkrat Moira. We'll probably be able to
Yeah,
survive.
can someone else go healer?
I have a tracer
So we're trying to coordinate with the team to get in a better team comp. This is fine.
flanking.
I would have liked that barrier to be a little further back, closer to the corner of the bus. This way, when it breaks, you can more easily move behind the bus. We're still staying behind the corner of the bus. But what it would have done is, because it's too far out, damage could potentially come from up top this way a little easier. It's not really important against the other team's comp. It's not like they have a Pharah or anything like that. But if the other team has like a Hanzo, the player can get up here and shoot down on you. or something like that. So if the barrier is a little closer to you, it's going to cover the top much better because it'll be here instead of here. The top of the barrier will be here because it's closer. So that top damage, this guy up here wouldn't have the angle to get down on you like that. So just a small thing.
Yeah, I'm going. Reaper.
Winston's on point. Winston's here. Need help with this Winston.
I'm gonna switch to Diva.
Okay, so this Winston's about to start attacking your squishy here. You really need to pull him. You need to try to use your right click to pull him away to allow this player to get away into the room and maybe escape. And maybe just try to contain this Winston however you can. You need to pull him, but we're reluctant to do this. The guy dies. We do eventually pull, but we're going to bongo here to try to save the point.
Nice.
I don't quite remember what happens here, so... Right. Okay. Yeah, we tried to bongo to save the point. It might have been dead. I probably wouldn't have ulted there, because if you look at the kill feed, I think you had 2 deaths. So it's a 4v6. And generally you don't want to waste your ults on a dead fight. Ultimate economy is one of the biggest parts of this game, and something you see inexperienced or low tier players do, like I'm talking like very new to the game players do, is they will use all of their ults just to win one fight because they tunnel vision into that one fight so hard that they just try to use everything to win it. But most of the time, it can be all about winning not only winning the fight, but winning it with using as little ults as possible. This way you have enough ults to win the next fight as well. And this is very important. And throwing this ult economy is only hurt by throwing your ults onto a dead fight. Fortunately, though, the Reaper's able to get 2 picks. This is big. Obviously, the Diva Bomb comes through, and we've already put down our barrier, so there's nothing we can do except try to get into this room. You can maybe make it to this car, but let me judge the time better.
Back up. Help here.
Nice.
Okay, actually, there's a few options you have here. I think you could make it to behind this car, possibly. It'd be close. You move into this room back here, which is also fine, but then you don't tuck. You need to go into this room and immediately tuck behind the corner, which you don't do. The other thing you could do, which is probably the thing to do, is move on the other side of your barrier. You can just go right here on the other side of your barrier and hop onto the other side of the barrier, and it'll protect you from the Diva Blast. But it does put you at risk from dying to the enemies over here. But you do have Fortify up, so they're probably not going to kill you if you do that. But also you're also risking the barrier being broken and then you die, because someone could break the barrier just to kill you. Anyway, we turn this way. What you need to do is immediately get in here and turn to the side, because there's enough room here to tuck behind. But we walk straight instead. So, yeah, we die there, and
I'm 60 on my ult.
that's that. So there's a little bit of indecision here on whether or not to switch and what to switch to.
Is that a mag?
I was gonna switch.
Get the Zen. The Zen's low. The Zen's low. On the right.
This is the best synergy. 'Cause I have the Fortify.
Zen's
He
still
was like
low.
1 hit. Keep it down.
So the Reaper goes big, and you're thinking you can save it. But, if you look in the kill feed, their Reaper also goes big, and then he sets off an ult, and you see all these dead bodies here,
I'm down.
and you decide to start moving towards the point. But at a certain point, you've got to decide, this fight is over, I've got to retreat, I've got to get out to go rejoin with my team. Excuse me. For me, if I see all this happening, I can see that they're far and their Reaper is still there, and only our Reaper's here, and they're going to be having reinforcements coming around in a second. I'm getting out because this is dead. You're just gonna end up staggering your death, feeding the enemy ult charge, and having to wait to regroup with your team even longer. So, and potentially giving the other team a chance to snowball your team, which is possibly the worst part. So what needs to happen is as soon as you see this, you need to say, forget it, I'm out. Yeah. As soon as you see this, you need to say, forget it, I'm out, I'm backing up, I'm leaving now. We're going to get punished for this in a second. So we try to push up, then we realize, okay, it's dead. We've identified that it's dead, but it took too long. We also were too late on the fortify again. We waited for our house to get below half, or to basically to half, and then fortified. We're
They're gonna take it. Reset.
right here when we know they're chasing us. We need to fortify now. This way we can at least get away long enough to get our barrier off cooldown. A lot of the way I think about fortify is using it to protect myself against ults, and it's two things: using it to protect myself against ults, and using it to get in between the downtime from your shield. So let's say you place down a shield, it's brand new, it takes 5 seconds for the enemy to crack it. Well, that fortify gets you right through to the next barrier, because yeah, you're going to be exposed for the next 3 seconds if you can't get to cover, but that fortify should keep you up long enough to get the next barrier down. And a lot of Orisa's playstyle revolves around sitting behind a shield and avoiding damage as much as possible. So, but here is another way we can use it. We can just use it to give us enough time to get our barrier down again. But we don't do that. We just walk straight back.
I've got red tire.
The Reaper gets us down to half, and then we fortify. It's a bit late,
Just a different tank.
so
Far up top.
we're gonna swap to Roadhog here, and that's fine. We're a little bit in indecision. This might have actually been a good opportunity to play Reinhardt, because if you look, Reinhardt is good when there's no high ground to really take advantage of, and this last point has very little high ground to actually take advantage of for the enemy team. They can maybe try to get a soldier up here. Sometimes you get a McCree in the back here, but keep in mind you also have a Winston to contest this with, or a Diva. So this actually might have been a good opportunity to just kind of play Reinhardt and try to win the game on a shatter, or try to stall them out on shatters, and just be the wall. But Hog isn't a bad pick here either, especially for last point stalls. Hog can be very effective because of his survivability. His survivability is through the roof. And so anyway, let's move forward. We're gonna break the barrier. That's good. Okay, so our Junkrat's ulting, and this Winston comes up on him. Now we're gonna get free shots on this Winston. We should be able to kill him, but our main priority has to be saving the Junkrat. So we're gonna see this player. We're gonna see shoots into the Winston's back a couple times, and that's great. You get the kill. It feels good, man. But what we could have done here is we could have hooked him. And that hooking would have prevented him from doing damage to the Hog, because it would interrupt his gun and he gets stunned, and it would just allow him to do that much less damage to our Junkrat. So I think that's what needs to happen here. But it doesn't matter. We get the kill before he dies. But just something to keep in mind for the future, because it would have been an easy hook. Nothing to say about that other than it's a great hook. We removed their support from the fight. Let's just go back for a second. So we see the Moiras here, and we go for the hook, and we land it. We gotta walk forward, and with Hog, with the new combo, you gotta always walk forward and always generally try to aim for the head, except against Tracer. You want to aim for the body on her. But one thing we don't do here is we don't do the quick melee at the end to finish off the combo. This is very important, as Moira is a character that, especially with Moira, as she doesn't always die to the full combo due to the RNG of the spread on Roadhog's weapon. Just doesn't always happen. We get a little lucky, she dies to the combo, but we forgot to melee, and that could have been the difference between her living and dying. So I know this player knows about the combo. The player even does it in a second. But you want to be prudent and make sure that you're doing the combo to its fullest. You should have meleeed there at the end. Let's move on. That was a great hook and a great big play. Right clicks are hard. Moving on.
Fair above.
Great hook. Great hook.
I'm gonna cut him off at the health bag.
Fair's lit.
Call out the Pharaoh's lit. D.Va says, I got it. Teammate brings it down. You don't necessarily always have to hit that last shot to finish someone off. I mean, obviously, it would be nice to finish them off yourself. But, you know, can't always hit the shots. So calling out that the player's low and that they're one is sometimes just as good because the teammate, they got your back, man.
He's lit. He's really lit. Got him. They're staggered.
It's cool. Let's just try to hold on point. Let's just try to hold on point. We're doing good. Yeah, but don't get picked here. Don't get picked for that.
Okay, so I do want to talk about this. This is one thing I identified when I watched it the first time. I was thinking about this from if it were me type of perspective, and we're not getting a whole lot done up here. Being up on high ground's fine, especially if, as Roadhog, sometimes you can get a cheeky hook from the back, or if you drop down here and then just walk through with your drink if things go south. But the Reaper's up with you, and he decides to drop down, and he has ult. And I think you should probably know he has ult, because I think you did hit tab a second ago or something. Anyway, even if you didn't know he has ult, he's going to drop in an ult in a second, and you'll see it. It happens right in front of you. One thing a lot of people understand about tanks is their job is to protect their teammates. And especially, not only protect their teammates, but to protect their teammates from enemy ults as well. But one thing that people don't always necessarily think of is that tank's job is also to protect, to enable their team to use their ults. Not only protect their team from enemy ults, but also enable their team to use their ults more effectively. So the Reaper's going to drop down in front of the D.Va's face here and ult. And then the D.Va's going to defense matrix the Reaper for a little bit. Now, fortunately, it still goes well and he gets a kill. But one thing we could be doing is drop down and hook the D.Va to prevent her from being able to protect against the Death Blossom. So, yeah, that's just one thing I would have done. Reaper predicts our hook in Wraith forms. We need to get away from him at this point. We need to turn our back to him to prevent him from getting critical shots. Walk away with our back turned to him. Maybe even drink to get back up to full health. But we need to get away from him because he is absolutely going to eat us alive. Especially since our hook is off cooldown. That's the only way to defend ourselves against the Reaper. So we gotta get out of there. But we stay up and try to duel him, and then wait till the last second to drop down. And we're gonna die for it. So that's a positioning thing. That's a taking a fight that you should have necessarily taken, or definitely should have taken. Understand that Reaper is the counter to Roadhog. Even though sometimes it can seem like Roadhog is somewhat adept at taking out Reaper if he has to hook off cooldown. But if your hook is gone and Reaper comes at you, you gotta turn tail, run away, get as far away from him as possible, and just create some distance until your hook comes back online, and maybe you can finish him off.
Nice.
Just target Moira if you can.
I just have DM on Reaper right now.
Team bails us out. Good, feels good, man.
Reaper's behind, he's low.
I'm gonna go try and get a pick. I've got Riptire.
They're behind payload.
Yeah, help me with Reaper. Reaper's literally
He
one.
was down.
By, He's dead, never mind.
Alright, I got whole hog. Get ready to nano me.
Alright, so we're trying to combo with Diana. This is really good. Whole Hog is very good. Is a very good combo with Nano. Especially since there's no one else on your team to really take a huge advantage of it. Reaper could. But right now you have the ult, which makes you the favorite for it. And what's going to happen here is going to be very good. It's a good amount of patience and communication.
Paris half. You ready for it? You ready? Now! Go!
Bar's behind. She's got barrage.
So not only were you able to push away half their team there, you got 3 of them pushed back all the way back, which isolates whoever's left out here. I think the D.Va and their Pharah are still left out here. You're able to get a kill, and you're able to split the other team in half. This is huge. This is very huge. And as you'll see, it's going to result in an easy team win. One thing I will say is that we had the Nano still for a little bit longer.
Bar's behind. She's got barrage.
I understand not wanting to wake up the D.Va, but she's half, she's antied, and we're nanoed. So I'm just walking right up to her, using the last second of the nano to spray bullets into her face to get her demixed. It's one thing we could have done, but
Bar down.
we're hesitant to wake up the D.Va, and I understand that as a reflex. It's just something we could have done.
Sorry, D.Va. I couldn't save
No,
you.
it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
Missed the hook. Can't hit everyone. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, they're gonna.
I almost have
grab
ult.
us
I almost
soon.
have ult. Yeah, they are.
Eva's almost out of mech. Eva's almost out of mech.
Reaper behind.
Big tire.
Nice. Don't. Nice.
Has little to do with, you know,
Deal with this Reaper.
nothing really to comment on it, you know. Junkrat bails us out sometimes. Feels good.
Flanking upstairs. He's never mind.
You got a drink? We got a drink right now. I think Roadhog's kit used to, before he got changed so much, his kit used to revolve around his hook. But nowadays, his hook actually revolves around his drink because it gives him so much survivability. And I think anytime we fall below 450 HP, and this is a loose rule of thumb, anytime you fall below 450 HP, it's okay, just go ahead and use it, because you're probably going to take some damage as you're drinking anyway, so you'll probably still get the value out of it. Don't wait till the last second to drink and then die. I think you want to keep yourself as full on HP as you can all the time. The cooldown isn't that long. You can generally survive off of 600 HP long enough for it to come back online, so I think we should have drank a little earlier there.
He's low.
So again,
Yes.
there is a time where you didn't want to drink. You want to just let your healer heal you up to build ult. Here, let's go back a second. There was something I wanted to point out.
He's low.
So we get the Reaper, that's great. You've got your hook. And Moira's right in front of you. And then Soldier's also going to turn the corner, and Zarya's going to lose her bubble. You have your choice of any one of these targets you can hook and bring into your team, because your whole team is right here, right next to you. And it's a very easy kill, as long as you just land one of these hooks on this group of people. We can get the hook on this Soldier easy. Just toss it right where he is, because he's going to be somewhere in this corner, because his likely movement is going to be back and around, because he's trying to back up. So he's going to go back and in this way. So as long as we put it the hook flush with this corner, we should get him. We don't toss out the hook. So I think that was a missed opportunity. We also wait too long to let our health get a little bit low there, like I was talking about before, but our healers heal it up, which is actually good. That's 400 HP for them to heal.
Yes.
We're going for a little cheeky flank. This is something I like to do with Roadhog a lot. Get the pick on Zen. That's very big. See, this is why. Let me just go back. This is why it's so big. You let the tanks push up past you, and then you know that their backline, their squishies, are going to be moving up in the back line, just behind their tanks. So you wait for the tanks to clear themselves out, and then get them before they know what to hit them. Look at that. He's right there. It's like he's begging to die. So you should be drinking here. We're waiting too long to drink.
Good stuff.
Oh, wait. No?
Okay, so that's what happens with Reaper. He's not guaranteed kill with the hook, but you've scared him off. That's
I
good.
got ult here. Get ready to nano boost me.
Okay, so we're doing the same thing again. This is gonna be an even better version of the last one. Spoiler alert. But you're gonna coordinate with this with the Ana and wait for them to clump up because they have to come through this way because it's the last push, and then you're gonna push them all away. It's gonna be great.
Get ready. As soon as they come around the
I'm
corner,
gonna try and find someone with a riptire.
they might be going above. Maybe. They might.
Check.
Reaper might. No, here we go. Get ready.
Oh,
Get
yeah,
ready.
Reaper's
Right
above, Reaper's
now, go.
above.
Hey, good stuff.
Good job.
So I'm going to talk about a few things now, just overarching kind of things I noticed throughout the entirety of the game. Just general themes. Again, and it's hard to tell just from one game, obviously, but this is what I noticed. First of all, the number one thing I want to highlight is that the communication is excellent. It's very good. This is very good communication. You are calling out targets for your team to focus down. You're calling out enemy positions of players. You're calling out when players are low. You're calling out where players are. You're coordinating ultimates. You're trying to anticipate enemy ultimates. Granted, not the entire time you did that. I think you did it once with the Reinhardt. That's a huge thing. You got shattered anyway. But one thing that could be worked on a little bit more is trying to keep track of every enemy's ult. You can generally understand, like, when you play enough, you can generally start to find a rhythm of how long it takes Soldier to get his tac visor on the enemy team, how long it takes Zenyatta to have trance. Is he going to have it every other fight? When was the last time you used trance? Do you think he'll have it this fight? Should you try to remove him first or force him to use his trance before you try to go for that Zarya grab? Things like this is very important. But that's one thing that we can work on a little bit with keeping track of enemy ults. You did do it once. That's good. It's a good sign. Moving on past communication, there was a reluctance to use survivability cooldowns. I think it was a general theme with the heroes you played, specifically Orisa and Roadhog. Waiting too long to use Drink or Fortify when they could have been they were needed earlier, or could have saved your life, but you're reluctant to use them because you're waiting too long. That's one thing that can be worked on. Another thing is just general positioning. You want to position yourself around terrain. This is true of actually basically anything, any hero in the game. You want to be positioning yourself near a corner or near a wall, near some sort of terrain. This way that if your shield breaks and things go south, or if you start taking damage, you can take cover immediately, right away. You don't want to be positioning yourself out in the open and depending on your barrier, because the moment it breaks, or you get hacked, or you get slept, or whatever happens, you're just gonna die. So you want to work on positioning yourself around terrain more. That is one thing that I wanted to note. See, barrier placement is with Orisa a little along the same lines. Placing it close to walls, placing it closer to yourself. Throwing out an Orisa barrier right before you're about to die is a big thing that I think you should just make a habit in general. And team compositions. Some of the team compositions were a little wacky. I think in this last part you ended up with 2 off tanks. You had a Diva and a Hog. No main tank. I consider the 3 main tanks in the game to be Orisa, Hog. I'm sorry, not Hog. Orisa, Reinhardt, and Winston. I think you should generally always have one of those in your comp. Obviously, you can get away on matchmaking on the ladder. You can get away without it. And players aren't always using your shield to their maximum benefit in the mid-tier games anyway. But I think in general you want to have one of each, and you want to go either dive or death ball or turtle comp. One of the three. You don't want to. I think there's a lot of mixed kind of comps where you have half the team is divey and then the other half is turtle comp, like where with an Orisa and you'll get like Orisa Torb and Mercy on or Orisa Torb and Ana on a team with Winston, Diva, and Genji, and it just doesn't make any sense. So you want to try to build around what the rest of your team is doing a little more, to provide maximum synergy, which is something you did seem to understand throughout the whole game. You were synergizing quite well, especially with ultimates and other, the rest of your team's abilities. So just some general rules of thumb. I think the play was excellent. Obviously, it's a good win, and gold medals feel good, man. Anyway, I hope somebody, if not my friend who asked me to coach him on this, or I asked to let me coach him, if not him, then I hope someone can benefit from this. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.